Okay, so I just got the cat out of the statue and is absolutely heavy as hell. I mean, this thing weighs 42 pounds in the box. I looked at the shipping label. So the cat in base is probably a good, I would say 22 pounds probably, maybe about that. So you can tell lifting this up, it's probably around that weight. But there's this brown block of polystone resin has got to be like another 20 pounds. It's just a huge block of polystone resin. I'm not sure why they did this. I understand what they were going for with the character and stuff, but it makes the thing so heavy. I mean, if I was producing a statue, I would probably maybe just do like a block of like hardwood and stain it. I mean, that would probably like save on cost, I would think. Maybe not, but it's just very, very like just a block of huge polystone resin. So if you were to put this on the shelf, this thing would really start warping it in no time. So the good thing is when I showed this to the client in the beginning, when I first got it in the mail, we kind of went over all the scaling with the legs and stuff. He says he doesn't want this block of resin because to ship it overseas is going to be absolutely insane with pricing. I mean, 42 pounds in a box like that, it's got to be a couple hundred. But taking off half of that will probably save a lot and should work out better. So my next step now is I'm going to take some pictures. I'm going to send it off to the client. We're going to figure out where he wants Ka-Zar. Like, does he want him back here a little bit more? Does he want him up front a little more? Does he want him turned in? Does he want him maybe going in this direction? So he's got sort of a weird pose, and I don't have a lot of like room for the knee here. So I want to see where he wants it because we have to figure out where he wants to display it. Does he want the cat on the display looking forward? Does he want to just focus on this way? So we'll see what he says. So what I have to do is figure out what he wants, go from there and start sculpting like some kind of a rock stuff so he can get situated. And the good thing is because it's kind of like a nature scene and it's really messy, I don't have to worry about getting too much messiness on there because I can go back in with some of these same colors and bring up some rocks and some of this like nature colors. And then when I'm done, I have that clear epoxy cast from Smooth On that gave me a test run that I practiced with. I can mix up some of that and I could pour some in and make the water kind of fill up a little bit more. It kind of just like blend it a little bit more. So that's kind of a good thing too. So that's where we're at with this. So I'm going to get this cleaned up a little bit more with a vacuum cleaner, get some of this foam out, hit it with the airbrush to get all that foam out of there so it gets into the vacuum cleaner because I don't want to break anything. And then I'm going to take my pictures, and then when we come back, I should have an idea of where he wants him, and we can start sculpting and prepping him in there. So once I get like a rock situated and I get him in and out of the base and it's all ready to go, then we can start painting up, and then we're pretty much done with it. That's pretty much as far as we're going with it. So I think I'm going to take that block of polystone off of this thing because it'll probably push in that wood. It's so heavy in the center of it, so and that wood's not that thick. So that's one thing I got to do now too. So when we come back, we'll have a good idea where he's going to go and we'll start sculpting. Alright, so I got to position where Ka-Zar is going to be. I sent a bunch of pictures. We're really set to go. So right in this little spot here that I marked, I got to drill a hole so I can start working out this peg and get that lined up. We are going to go with a branch. He said he wants to go with a branch, so we're going to do as best as I can to kind of sculpt the branch coming out to hold the other part of the foot. Not sure yet if I'm going to have a branch come out where it stops here or if I'm going to just kind of bring it down around and bring the branch down more this way. I have to see as far as I can go with it, but for right now, I have to get the foot dremeled out. Now normally I would go in the garage and do all this, but like I said, I don't want to keep lifting this up all over the place, so I brought everything inside, so I'm just going to use my regular vacuum cleaner, and I'm going to drill the hole with just a regular drill bit. So let's just kind of do that real quick. Sorry about the noise, but that should work out pretty well. Okay, so that's kind of where we're going to kind of put them. I might have to go in a little bit further. Yeah, I'll go in a little bit further, so I'm going to have to kind of Dremel out a little bit further in. It's just one of those things, because I'm going to have to kind of build underneath the foot a little bit anyway, because I can't really Dremel too far to the bottom of the base. We don't want to ruin it. That should be exactly kind of where we want to go. So we're going in like this direction, like something almost like that, I guess. Yeah, like that. So he's going to go like right about there, like so. So like I said, something like this, I'd rather work out this peg and build up a little underneath there first. So this way I can get him sliding in and out, and then I can work about bringing this branch here. So what I'll probably do is I'll put like Dremel a hole in here once I get him situated. I'll put a rod going through, and then I'll just use some magic sculpt or something. And I think what we'll do is we'll sculpt the branch coming to like right here, just kind of like a thin little branch coming around. We don't need to come up or down. We don't need to break it apart. We'll kind of like try to follow this kind of broken piecing around here, but maybe come down a little bit. We'll see how that works out. But yeah, it's mostly working out the peg first to make life easier. So next step is to go in the garage. I'm going to cut out a hollow brass rod piece. Get some magic sculpt, get that situated in there, start planning that out, and then once he's pretty much set up there, we start working on this branch. Alright, so I took my pictures, I sent it to the client, we figured out where we're going to place him. So what I did is I dremeled out a little spots right here. What I did is I made my little keying system with hollow brass rod here. So his foot's going to go right about there, and we're going to position him like this, like that, about there. And then what he did is he decided he does want some kind of a branch coming out. So I don't know if I'm going to connect the branch coming back over here over the water, or if I'll connect it maybe around this little part here and kind of come under the foot down to there. Or maybe just kind of bring something up like high and then stop it. I'm not really sure yet exactly where the branch is going. For right now, I want to position him. So I mixed up a little magic sculpt. What I'm going to do right now is put the magic sculpt on there, try to get this hollow brass rod in there lined up correctly. It's something I got to toy with over the next hour or so to make sure I kind of get him set up, because I don't want to put him in correctly, pop it out and pull it out at an angle, and then when I put him in, he's kind of like this way. You know, I got to make sure he's exactly where I want him. I do have to sculpt a little bit of an extra like piece around here for the foot, because the foot is just not exactly where we want it. We can't really put him in this tree branch because it won't work. There's not enough meat and all that stuff. So I got to kind of, I'm just kind of limited to what I can do, but I think it should work out fine. Once I get him positioned correctly, we'll be pretty well and set to go. So let's just throw some magic sculpt on there and try and get this situated. Alright, so he is all set up. It works out pretty well, so he goes in and out of this spot with no problems. You just got to make sure you don't hit the tiger putting him in. You just kind of get in there, no problem. So the next step is we're going to create a metal rod in here with some kind of support to bring a branch coming down like around here. Maybe I'll kind of like curve it a little bit underneath the foot just to kind of like go right here, like down there. I don't want to bring it out too far. So what I got to do is Dremel into here, get a rod, glue it in, and then build like an armature, like some kind of like magic sculpt, or I have some freeform air, I got some other materials, and I think once I get sort of like an armature built, then I can actually start sculpting with like Aves or something and sort of try to capture this tree, like sculpt a little bit, or some kind of like broken up tree or something coming here. What I'm thinking is maybe I'll kind of bend it, but I'll kind of like split it up and break it and make it look really messy coming down here. Just to have this foot secured on something, because if you don't, you know, it's got to have something there. And this worked out pretty well. This will get cleaned up a little bit, but I had to have something here for the foot. Alright, so next day, and this worked out great. He fits in here no problem, so he slides in and out of that peg without an issue, so at least I know this leg is nice and supported, because I put that metal rod in there, and he slides it with no problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in the garage, get some kind of like metal rod or something. I got to get something that I can use as an armature. I'm going to Dremel a hole like right here into this part of the tree. And then I'm going to take the rod and I'm going to sort of kind of bend it coming down in this direction. And then what I'll do is I'll probably just slap some glue there, and grab some like Magic Sculpt and kind of build like an armature. Magic Sculpts will pretty much start curing up fairly fast because the stuff I have is like really old now. I need to order some more. So it'll give me some kind of an armature there. And then what I could do is I could probably use some like freeform air or some Aves or something depending on what I want to use and sort of create the tree. I'm going to just try to capture this tree like texture as best as I can. And just make it like sort of like a wooden broken branch coming around over here. And it doesn't have to be perfect because most of this tree looks fairly old and all raggedy and like split up and stuff. So I can sort of capture that as much as possible. And then once it's all done, he's secured and we got the branch going, I could kind of do a little bit of blending with the tree and paint and actually bring together. The only problem would be though is trying to paint underneath the tree back in this direction. That's going to be my worst problem there. So that's going to be, because from what I can tell, from what I'm thinking, it's almost is it possible maybe this tree was cast separately, painted, and then attached into the base, because I don't know how they would cast it with this in here without trying to get all this paint under there. That's going to be a little tricky. I'll figure that out later. But for right now, we got to just build that armature. Okay, so I dremeled a hole here, and I dremeled a hole here, and I have this big metal bar that I had in the garage of stuff, so I kind of just bent it, and I cut off the pieces and stuff. So, as you can see, we have like a little bit of a bar armature and stuff like that. So, when we put Ka-Zar into the base like this, he hovers just above the bar, which is where I wanted it to be. I didn't want him to actually be touching the bar at all. Just kind of above it. So this way when I sculpt Aves or Magic Sculpt or whatever I use there, I can actually press it down and get it, because I didn't want him touching the bar itself. So I have a bunch of Magic Sculpt that I mixed together. This is kind of like the last of the container. It's really it's tough, so it should cure out fairly fast for me today, so I can actually start sculpting this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of like flatten it out and throw it underneath the bar, kind of throw a little bit down there and a little bit over there to really secure it. So this way when I'm probably going to use Aves to probably sculpt this branch. And this way I can sculpt on top of it and it should work out pretty well and be really secured. So fairly simple, you know, it just kind of gives you a good starting point to sculpt onto it. I thought about putting like some black paint into this when I kind of sculpt under there to try to do, you know, to be able to paint under there. But it looks like what I'm going to have to do is just sculpt the best I can underneath the area of the branch, and then just get in there, like bend a paintbrush or something underneath and do some like dark green paint on the bottom of it. I think that's as far as I'm going to be able to go to try to get under there, because it just can't do it, because like I said, I think this branch is actually sculpted separate from the base and they just attached it. So, you know, you can do what you can do on customs, and this is what we're going to kind of run with. So let me get this Magic Sculpt on there now before it hardens up on me, and then start sculpting up the branch once it's pretty much set. Okay, so we got the tree branch all finished up. Now, I just got done doing a live stream on this. I will link that in the description. I'll have it reposted. I completely forgot to hit record on the live stream, or at least kind of like record a little bit here and there to do like a fast video. I'm still trying to get used to all this and stuff as I work on stuff, so it's a little complex, but I'll get there slowly. So what I'm going to do is I'll link the live stream in the description. If you guys want to check that out, you can. You can pretty much see how the armature was already there with the Magic Sculpt, and I just pretty much put a bunch of red Aves on and sat down, kicked on some music, and just live streamed me sculpting it for a while, so you could kind of get a better idea in real time. Skip through the video, you could kind of see how it goes on for a few hours, but it works out pretty good. I kind of tried to follow this little bit of sculpting here, but I know I wasn't going to match it completely, so I did my own little take a little bit, but sort of still, you know, try to match it. But we got a nice tree branch that comes across. He goes in and out, and he steps on it pretty well. So what I might have to do is kind of just touch up some things here and there, send out some pictures, and then hopefully I think we'll pretty much be ready to start painting him up after, because that's pretty much all we really needed to do. So the cat is going to be repainted because we have to get all those spots off of him. So it's going to be basically an orange cat with some, like, you know, highlighting and stuff. We'll kind of do a real quick repaint on him. He's got a black nose too, from what I understand, so it's not like the white in the front, but we'll kind of go over that. The mouth and the tusks are pretty much perfect. We don't have to touch those. And then we just got to touch up the tree and base, and then paint up Ka-Zar. So moving along pretty fast now. Alright, to get underneath it here, what I did is I broke off that piece of a, you know, paintbrush off the top of it, and I had this metal rod, and I kind of just used some duct tape on top. And I'm going to try to get underneath here as best as I can to some of these other areas. Just painting it up black, green for now, just to get underneath, and then we'll do all the touch-ups. Okay, so we're going to start painting up the cat now. So I got my little rig set up here for my airbrush booth because I can't really put this cat in the booth because, one, I won't be able to turn the cat, and second of all, my airbrush booth can't handle something this heavy on it. The fans really will cause issues. So I set up this little thing with the original base, a block of wood, and a statue box that leans over there, and I can actually turn this and paint. I did mask off the cat with silly putty all over the base, the tusks, the mouth, and the eyes. And I sprayed it down with some clear primer. So the next step is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a color of an orange that I like. That's going to be the darkest color. And I'm going to spray down the item and get all these little circles out of there. And once all those circles are out of there, we'll pull him off the base. We'll pull him out of the airbrush booth. We'll put him on my desk, and I can start doing dry brushing. And that's how I'm going to actually paint this cat. You could do it another way, where you can actually paint the item in a nice bright orange. And then you could do washes in there, and you could let all the washes go into the crevices and stuff. So it's whatever way you like to work, you can do it. If you're like washing stuff, you can wash. If you like dry brushing, you can dry brush. But with this item, we're sort of keeping the factory colors, and we're trying not to go a full-blown repaint. We're just trying to get a lot of these circles out of there. But we'll see how far it goes. But for right now, I'm going to mix up a color, spray them down, let it dry a little bit, and then we're just going to go and dry brush and just take our time trying to pull out all those fur details. But if you see a little bit in the stomach area, when I did hit it with primer, it wasn't completely dry because I had to do it in the garage. And some of this primer actually let me pull some of the paint off. But that's actually fine. I'm going to just like hit it real quick again before I start painting it. And I won't really be lifting him up as much anymore once this is pretty much done. Okay, so I sent some pictures to the client, and he wanted to go more of like an orangey, light orange look. And I realized, looking at some of the old comic books of Ka-Zar, basically the cat is kind of more of like an orangey, like a light orange type of cat. So we wanted to kind of capture that a little bit more. So what I did is I used a vivid orange from Garage Kit Colors, and I sprayed the character down. And what happened, that gave it a really potent orange look to it. But that helped a lot of the darker areas to give it a little bit more orangey look to it, because it was more like a darker brown. And then what I do is, just for like dry brushing before, I use heavy body Liquitex paints. So I use like a little bit of an orange, a raw sienna, and a white. And I dry brushed the cat again, and I really kind of went more with like a white, a lighter orange color onto the cat. So we definitely got it to where we want it now. It's definitely closer to the comics. It's just that the problem with orange paint, once you start trying to make it lighter and lighter and lighter, you start getting closer to that like really muted, like it's like you could go too far within the cat will look almost like whitish. So we wanted to go as far as like this on the color. So I think it worked pretty well. The other thing too is what I did is I left the feet dirty in darker colors from the original sculpt, because that, you know, because the cat is walking through the jungle, the feet are a little bit darker, but the top of the cat will be a little bit lighter, you know, muddy-ish. So I think it plays to the cat a little bit more. So what I'm going to do now off camera is I'm probably just going to paint up the nose, because the nose is supposed to be black. So I'll just paint up the nose black. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this cure up for a few hours. I'll probably come back after lunch, and what I'll do is I'll seal it. I'll use some of my Mecha Varnish flat varnish matte. I'll use some of this on it, kind of dull it down, give it a little bit of a seal. I just want to let these paints dry. Even though these Liquitex paints are really durable and they dry very well, like if you really let them dry for like a good month or two, the paints are really strong. But since it's such a heavy cat, it's going to go back into the box of foam and it's going to be shipped out of the US. We want to make sure that at least it's as durable as possible. Even though I did a bunch of layers, I'm really not worried about a lot of the paint coming off, because it's you know, it should be really well. But you just want to make sure you seal up as much as you can. I could hit it with a Duplicolor clear paint, the car paint, and then dull it down. But since there's a lot of little details in here and there's a lot of little stuff, I don't want any of that car paint kind of like messing any of that up and filling it in too much. So I think just some nice varnish on it should do pretty well. So I'm going to do that off camera, and the next step is we're going to pop out Ka-Zar and start working on him. Okay, we're going to start painting up Ka-Zar now. So I went over him one more time. I made sure everything was sanded and all pretty much smooth out. I added another coat of the base flesh tone, and it's pretty good. Now the base flesh tone is a little bit of a bronze look to him. It's not really bright, it's not really too dark, so I want to try to keep him around that color. So we have some burnt sienna hue here mixed in the bottle, which I'll use this as a mix with this to do some shading. We have some transparency pale flesh. We have some transparency bright flesh, but I won't really use the bright too much because it's more of a red. I want to keep them more of a bronze, so this is kind of more of an orangey look. We have some regular bronze flesh from Garage Kits if I need to use that, but pretty much I'll be using this mostly. We have some P3 Formula Flesh Wash, which is really kind of like more of a bronze transparency, which is pretty decent. And then we have some semi-transparency Garage Kit Flesh, which is really good for doing some highlighting. So if I want to make some of these areas a little bit more highlighted and not too dark, I could run with this a little bit on there, but I really don't want to go that far with it. I want to keep a more of that bronze look to him. But we'll see how that works out. Because a lot of the old comic books, though, he has a lot of really whitish bright flesh on him, so we want to try to keep him to the comic books as well, but we'll see how that works out. Now I don't have any specific formula of how I paint. I'm always blending color, so I'll do a really heavy shading, then I'll go back and I'll tone that down. I'll do another heavy shading, I'll go in with some transparencies, I'll tone those down, and I just keep going and going until I get to the skin where I want. Other people might have like formulas where they paint dark to light or light to dark. I do it this way, so it just works out for me. So I'm not going to get too detailed with it. We're just going to run along pretty fast, get it done. Once the skin tone's done, we seal that up, and then we work out the rest of the features on him and go from there. Okay, so at this point, I'm really happy with where the skin tone is. I might go in some areas off camera just to touch up stuff like, you know, maybe between the fingers, the toes, and stuff like that I can't really do with the airbrush. But for right now, I'm just going to give you guys an example of what's going to happen by tomorrow. What I like to do is usually use Tester's Dull Coat on my skin tones, but I'm really happy with where this is at. It really feels very good for like fitting close to Bowen statues without it being overly shaded and still kind of be in line with the other types of Bowens out there that he has. So I'm not going to go crazy trying to make it super detailed. We're going to try to keep it more in line with the factory stuff. So I did a couple of the blending. It's all blended very nicely, so I don't need to melt the paints together with the Tester's Dull Coat. What I'm going to do now is when I close up tonight, so I don't have to smell any fumes all day long, I'm going to hit it with Tester's Dull Coat. I'm going to give it a nice good candy coat glossing to really protect all that skin tone and let it dry overnight. And then tomorrow what I'll do is I'll come back in and I'll satin varnish it. Now satin varnish is like a mix between Vallejo's matte varnish and gloss varnish. It's kind of satin, gives it a little bit kind of a sheen but not glossy, but it's also not super flat. So satin varnish kind of fits in with the Bowen stuff, where Bowen statue sort of feels like a little bit shiny, like it's got that little bit of that glossiness to it, because it's kind of like candy car paint, like lead-based paint basically. So I want to capture that look on him because we don't want him to go super flat. I think for the cat it looks good with the flat coat, but for him we want to give him a little bit more of a satin look to him. So we'll do that tomorrow, and then after that just start working on the rest of them. Okay, we're pretty much almost done, so I'm just going to kind of explain what's going on, and we'll just kind of fly through it, and then we'll get him into the photo studio, and we'll just kind of look it over. So right now what's going on is the base is here, the cat is pretty much done, the face and everything on the cat is done. Now I'm not sure yet if I'm going to add any epoxy water over here. We might just leave it there. I'm going to like kind of think about that once the figure's done. But other than that, if we don't do it, we'll just have them in the photo studio and we'll pretty much be done. But if I do the epoxy stuff, we'll come back and look at it. So right now, the figure is pretty much, the majority of him's done. The skin tone was the most on him. So now that the skin tone's done, it's all sealed up. What I did is I just used a paintbrush to do all the trim around here, because it's very jagged and it's hard to get the silly putty in there. So I'd rather do with a paintbrush and just shove the silly putty in around these edges and get it filled in and not have to worry about masking perfectly. I also did some trim around the upper scalp area, around the whole entire area of the yellow. And what's going to happen now is I'll probably finish masking all this off. So I'll do the undies and the hair at the same time, seal it up, let it dry, and then I could come back tomorrow and I could do the bracelets, and then I could do the knife, and when I do the knife I'll do the eye decals at the same time, and the figure's done. So there's really not much to, as far as painting him, it was just more of the customization for him. That was kind of the majority of the issue. So we're just going to fly through it right now. It's just a matter of painting, masking, and then sealing it up, and then we're done. And like I said, we'll figure out if we're going to add any more water to the base or not, but this is kind of like pretty much finishing it. Okay, just finished up the bracers and I finished up the dagger as well. So that's all that's next is doing some touch-ups, making sure everything's nice and clean, and try to clean up some edging. I have to do the eye decals at the eyes tomorrow because I just did a little tiny clear coat on the eyes. And after that, just go over him one more time, look up for any touch-ups, anything I missed, and go into the photo studio and take some nice pictures for the client. And then go from there if there's anything else that needs to be touched or tweaked or whatever. But other than that, it's pretty much done. So I think once we get into the photo setup in my office, we'll be able to show a lot better pictures and really see everything in better lighting than we're seeing now. So let me get this touched up and we'll come back with the final results. Okay guys, we are all finished up. I'm really happy with the way this came out. Client absolutely loves it. He's happy too. We're not adding anything else to the base like any epoxy cast clear resin. He's happy with where the resin clear from the factory is. He likes the tree. He likes everything. So it is pretty much ready to go. this was a lot of fun. I actually really enjoyed this custom because this is a really great one of a kind. Yes, the client had to pick up the Ka-Zar bust, he had to get this cat statue, we had to get Troy to sculpt the legs, and then me put it all together. But it really makes a great one-of-a-kind statue for his collection. Now, just imagine this on his shelf next to a Ka-Zar CGC book or some trade books or something like that. I think would look really amazing. And that's why I always tell people, just because there's some old busts or statues out there that you think are not really worth it, there's still some really great sculpts out there, whether it's Bowen Designs, CS Moore, DC Direct, Diamond Select Toys, old Sideshow stuff that are still amazing sculpts out there that you can really have some fun with. So, you know, if you're a Spider-Man fan and you're a Superman fan, maybe you want to take an old Spider-Man museum statue and you want to have him stand next to Superman from a DC Direct or something, you know, or maybe there's an old Sideshow that you want to, you know, that's got some cloth on it you want to take off and kind of rebuild it and do some stuff. So these are the options out there, so don't think that just because old stuff you really can't do anything with it. And I think the client came up with a really great idea of getting this cat statue and getting Ka-Zar next to it without having to like sculpt the cat from scratch or commission somebody to sculpt from scratch. It kind of worked out amazingly that this is what he wanted for his shelf, and it just worked. So it was a lot of fun. So let me know what you guys think of the whole process. Do you like the end result? Do you know who Ka-Zar is? Whether you do or you don't, do you just like the idea that this is a really cool item that's going to be in his collection for a long time? And maybe it gives you guys some ideas out there that maybe you like a bust. Maybe you want to go and pick up some old statues and just kind of add them to other stuff. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys liked the series, and we'll be back with some more videos.